These are the areas that the guy was in for the stabbing in Birmingham. As you just saw there briefly. I don't think the guy who did the stabbing is going to be in the same area. I think he may have left the area where did these incidents and did these stabbings, because I don't think he's going to be in the area anymore. So all the police probably need to be notified where this guy was. As I showed you with the video with the old guy, he saw what was going on with the woman getting stabbed with the knife. That's when the guy with the knife got up, looked at the old guy, and walked off. That's what the old man was saying on there. So, like I say, the police are looking in the wrong area for this guy. He's not going to be in the same area. It's logical. If you do a crime, if you stab somebody or do a crime, you're not going to stay in the same area. That's just stupid. And saying that is not a nice thing to do to somebody who stab someone and shoot someone or do anything to somebody like that. And they're talking about they've cornered most of the area off on the news.
Streets included
as you can see here.
And there have been police and forensic teams working here.
There's a woman there saying it's been cornered off.
Two what appeared to be plainclothes officers came and had a look at some of the CCTV in the local area.
I can't believe they can't even catch the guy. They don't know what he looks like unless the guy covered his face up. So
listen to what he said.
She screamed, he's stabbing me, but everybody thought because
this is the guy that's talking about the woman.
Thought he was robbing her necklace or something, you know. But I've seen it, and I started screaming, and then he walked. He didn't even run. He just kind of.
Guy sounds Australian. This guy does. He's in London.
From sidewalk, he came on the street, in the middle of the street, and he started running. It was a girl, and after we saw a guy as well a bit further up. The guy was bleeding all over. But the police were straight away there. And a couple of officers we know from here that were attending there, and the ambulance came after a few minutes.
Well, what Mr. Francis was talking about happened just on the street behind me, and he says he saw the aftermath of one stabbing attack, and then he actually saw the stabbing take place of the second attack. And the first one he described just by where that dustbin is on the left-hand side where the traffic light is, a man with blood-soaked T-shirt, and then he says further down. I don't know if you can read there, but there's a sign, a sidewalk. He says just near there, a woman pinned up against.
I reckon the guy must have had help to get away or something, or he may have had accomplices help him get away. He must have planned it very good what he's done.
Now, police have asked local anyone in the local area who may have been here last night to submit any mobile phone footage and any photographs taken throughout the evening. And they've also made an appeal for CCTV camera. And just looking around, you can see that the buildings have got lots of CCTV. So that investigation might be lengthy, but there is probably plenty for them to go on.
Sadia, live from Birmingham, thank you. Boris Johnson's chief Brexit negotiator says the UK is not scared to walk away from the European Union without a trade deal. Lord Frost said that Theresa May's government had blinked and its bluff had been called by Brussels, something his team would not be repeating. Nick Martin has the latest from Westminster.
What Lord Frost has been doing in the papers today has been setting out his stall, and he's saying, we will not blink, we will get what we want. And that's really something that's been backed up by other senior cabinet ministers today. Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary, telling Sophie Ridge that these talks are a moment of reckoning. This is what he said.
Well, I think it's there for the taking. This week the negotiations were really important. All the UK is asking for is to be treated like any other country in free trade negotiations. No other country would accept being bound by or controlled by the EU's rules, or indeed in their relations with any other country. Indeed, the EU wouldn't accept it in relation to us. I think that's just straightforward point of principle. We hope that the EU as a whole will really understand that this week is the moment of reckoning. There is a deal to be done, and we're only asking to be treated just as the EU would expect, or any other third country negotiating with the EU, or indeed any other country in relation to free trade negotiations. I don't think that sounds unreasonable. That's just plain common sense.
There are two main areas that I think the two men are going to be talking about. And the first one is access to fisheries, and the other one is the issue of state aid. And these are two very big issues for both sides to get over. But get over them they will have to if a deal is to be struck. And time is running out. Ultimately, we will have to get to the end of the year where all the other EU nations will have to ratify all this. But for now, the scene really is set for some face-to-face talks to try to strike a deal. But, neither side wants to back down, but there will have to be some common ground. What Britain is saying, if we don't get what we want, we are happy to walk away. And that's a strong talk for them to go into these talks with. But that for them is really their only tactic. They cannot be seen to be compromising on anything. So they'll say that we're not going to blink. If we don't get what we want, we'll happily walk away.
Tough restrictions have come into force in Bolton to help stop coronavirus cases rising. It's after the town's infection rate became the highest in England. Residents have been told not to mix with people from other households and that public transport should only be used for essential travel. Sky's Katerina Vitozzi is in Bolton and sent us the latest.
Coronavirus is bad in
When
Bolton.
you look at the infection rate in Bolton just 2 weeks ago, it was below the UK average then. It was at 12 cases per 100,000, but in the last week, it's
Bolton
more than
affected
quadrupled
areas
to
country
99
with a
cases
weekly
per
infection
100,000.
of
It's
99
really
new
that
cases
remarkable rise
per
which has led to
100,000
these
people.
stricter lockdown restrictions that have been put in place by Bolton Council. As you said, they are toughening up the measures, asking people not to be mixing with other households, either indoors or outdoors, and for the essential use of public transport only. So that means for going to schools, going to work, and for those essential appointments like going to hospital, for example. Now, they've put these measures in place alongside, they say, with assistance from Public Health England officials and the government, because what they want to avoid is a full-scale, Leicester-style local lockdown, which would see businesses perhaps forced to close, businesses which are still staggering to get back on their feet after being so shut for so very, very long.
Let's take a look at some of the day's other news now. Thousands of women have marched through the capital of Belarus calling for the resignation of the country's president, Alexander Lukashenko. Opposition leaders have been protesting since last month's disputed general election, which saw Lukashenko win with 80% of the vote. Rescue workers in Beirut say there's no hope of finding more survivors from last month's explosion. Around 50 workers, including a specialist team from Chile, have been searching the rubble of one building on Thursday. After the sensors detected signs of breathing and heat, it emerged that signs of life detected by sensitive equipment actually belonged to fellow rescue workers. Sudan has declared a 3-month state of emergency over serious flooding which began in July. The rising floodwaters and heavy rainfall have killed almost 100 people and damaged more than 100,000 properties. And a new poll suggests more than half of us are losing confidence in the government's ability to handle the coronavirus pandemic. The survey by the Health Foundation charity found that 56% of people feel the measures being taken to fight COVID-19 don't go far enough. That's compared with 39% in May. Ireland may be famous for its pubs, but now is the only country in Europe where bars are still shut. Thousands of jobs have been lost over the nearly 6 months long shutdown, the longest in EU. Gastropubs have also been allowed to reopen, but so-called wet pubs, which don't serve food, remain closed. From Dublin, our Ireland correspondent Stephen Murphy reports.
Business as usual? Not for the majority. Some bars in Ireland are open, those that serve food, but 60% of Irish pubs have been shut for almost half a year. It's the longest pub shutdown in Europe, and in the country most closely associated with the pub. In a rural part of County Kildare, you'll find one of the so-called wet pubs, those that don't serve food. Moon High Cross Inn has had some illustrious visitors in the past. No one can visit now. A family business, owner William Clinch says the pub has already lost 70% of its annual turnover.
It's been extremely tough financially. We've had a bit of cash put aside for rainy days, but that well is kind of running dry now at the minute.
Like many, he can't understand the logic behind pubs that serve food being allowed to open while wet pubs stay shut.
I find that a little bit farcical now, to be honest. What they're really doing there is they're calling our customers irresponsible, and pretty much as well what they're doing is they're saying we can't manage or control the crowd as well.
By that logic, the government does trust Jason Gamble. He runs the popular Searsons pub in Dublin. With a busy kitchen, it's open with restrictions. So does he understand the authorities' logic?
No, not really. No, I don't think people coming in, having dinner and a drink is different to people going into a wet pub and having a drink over the same period of time with the safe social distancing done. It should be able to work for those guys as well.
With solidarity like that, why then are most Irish pubs still closed?
If you think rationally about it, really there's no difference if you're having food or not. I suppose the only difference is that maybe the food will slow down the amount of alcohol going into your system and may slow down that loss of inhibition to an extent. If we can trust bars to open and follow guidelines as they're supposed to do, as restaurants and gastropubs are doing for the most part, then there's no real reason why bars shouldn't be allowed to open.
They say you can find an Irish pub in pretty much any city in the world. The one place where you'll struggle to find an Irish pub open is here in Ireland, and it's the uncertainty of that situation which frustrates publicans the most.
It's affecting us a lot mentally. Like, again, it's the stress, a lot of stress, then there'll be financial stress as well, from the business as well. Like, another couple of months of this, and we're not sure how long we can sustain it.
Some pubs have already decided they can't sustain it. These are just 2 Dublin pubs that have announced they're closing for good. The government has unveiled a range of grants. Publicans derided it as inadequate. It's expected a roadmap for reopening the pubs will be announced later this month. But for some small businesses, it could be too late. Stephen Murphy, Sky News in Dublin.
This is Sky News coming up. A murder investigation is launched after a man was killed and 2 people were seriously injured in stabbings in Birmingham. The attacker remains at large.
Well, that's that video done, guys and girls. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Give it a like, give it a comment, share your friends. I know it's sad news what's happened in Birmingham, but see you in the next video. Peace.